Malaysia's power grid is entering a stress test it was never originally designed for. The surge of AI-driven data centers is not just adding demand, it is concentrating it, intensifying it and making it far more dynamic than traditional consumption patterns. At the same time, the system itself is evolving from one-way power delivery to a two-way data-driven, renewable-heavy network shaped by rooftop solar, storage and cross-border electricity trade. The real question is no longer whether demand will grow, but whether the grid can become intelligent, flexible and predictive fast enough. Because if modernization keeps pace, AI data centers can become strategic grid assets. If it doesn't, they risk becoming systemic pressure points on reliability, price stability and energy security. To discuss this further and deepen our understanding, we take a closer look at what must change technically, structurally and from a policy standpoint to ensure the grid is future ready. And together with us today is Mr. Jason Ong, General Manager for Asia Gentrack Limited. Okay, Jason, to start off, maybe we want to start by saying that Malaysia is seeing a rapid influx of AI-driven data centers. How is this changing where, when, and how intensively electricity demand shows up on the grid? And why does this challenge the way our grid was originally designed?
Yeah, selamat pagi. So first of all, the AI and data center boom is happening globally, not just in Malaysia. So countries like the US, India are growing by almost 70%, while in this region, Thailand and Vietnam are increasing their number of data centers by more than 50%. And Malaysia itself is adding 30 new data centers on top of the existing 125 they're operating today, mostly across Kuala Lumpur and Johor. Now, each data center requires up to 100 megawatts of electricity and they run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And 100 megawatts of electricity is the equivalent of how much it takes to power 100,000 residential homes or up to 50 shopping malls. So in summary, with Malaysia adding another 30 data centers within the next 10 years, that is the equivalent of an additional 3 million residential homes or up to 150 more AWANI shopping malls. And in the meantime, more homes will continue to be built, shopping malls will continue to be developed. So you can imagine the amount of electricity that the power grid needs in order to deliver, to keep up with the electricity demand. And the Energy Ministry, Petra, they have projected that data centers alone could require more than 20 gigawatts of electricity by 2040. So Malaysia's power system is looking at one of the fastest demand growth across Southeast Asia and facing one of the biggest challenges in history.
Yeah, and traditionally, power grids were built for one-way delivery from centralized generation to consumers. With more renewables, rooftop solar and regional power trade, what structural changes must Malaysia's grid undergo to operate as a two-way intelligent system then?
Yeah, so the grid is becoming much more complex than before. Traditionally, with the one-way infrastructure, you have a group of power plants, they generate and feed electricity into the grid. It goes through the transmission lines and eventually into the homes and the factories and the buildings. But this is not sufficient if you are talking about coping with the current rising demand for electricity due to the rising number of data centers. So we could build more power plants to solve this problem, but that would just bring us further away from our net zero goals. So with the introduction of solar energy powering the buildings and feeding back to the grid, as well as the adoption of new renewable energy sources such as hydrogen, and also with regional cross-border interconnections between countries, the power grid has to become more modernized in order to cope with the stress of managing the flow of electricity across these new sources of power supply. And the modernization of the grid requires real-time data. It's all about data. Now, ironically, while the underlying cause of the increase in the number of data centers is the massive growth of data and data-driven use cases, the key enabler to balance the demand and supply of energy is the availability of real-time data. Because with real-time data, we can make faster and smarter decisions to manage the volatility and the spikes in energy demand, because real-time data enables what we call predictive balancing. Predictive balancing allows us to dispatch energy that is stored perhaps in battery energy storage systems that have been powered by solar energy. Predictive balancing allows us to adjust energy imports, and more importantly, it provides us with the ability to promote what we call demand flexibility. Now, if we are trying to achieve our net zero goals only by tackling the supply side of the equation, it is like a dog chasing its tail. It's endless and it's a futile effort. So we need to do more to tackle the demand side of the equation. And ever more important now with the increase in the data centers. So, for instance, we know that the large commercial buildings and industrial factories, they take up more than 70% of the demand for energy. And so for a start, the Naga National or TNB, they provide time of use charging for businesses, making it cheaper for electricity usage during the off-peak hours from 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. on weekdays and full day on weekends and holidays. So this means businesses can shift their power consumption towards the off-peak periods by adjusting the operations accordingly. And this is to help reduce the peak load of electricity, and it also helps them save on energy costs. But I still believe that more can be done by introducing perhaps more pricing layers and more tariff structures.
And now AI-heavy data centers are often seen as major demand risk. What would it take in terms of technically and commercially to turn them into flexible grid assets that can respond to real-time conditions instead of just drawing constant power?
Yeah, so with more real-time data, we actually have more accurate forecasting of power supply and demand, and we can have more robust orchestration of the power grid. It also means that the key stakeholders across Malaysia's energy sector, such as the Energy Ministry, Petra, the Energy Commission, ST, and TNB, they can now have the ability for better planning and decision making, because now there is less room for error with these AI heavy data centers running 24 by 7. Traditionally, the operators, they tend to be more reactive. The problems are only detected when the energy reserves are thin, during surges in electricity demand. It could be outages caused by unexpected conditions such as weather factors or operational issues. So with the availability of real-time data and better forecasting, the operators can now take a more proactive approach by introducing measures to address the risk of these problems before they take place. For example, there are technology solutions out there, such as Gentrack, that can help the stakeholders and the operators leverage on more effective tariffs and grid orchestration. They can potentially help shift the load away from the non-critical consumption of electricity during supply shortages or during the demand spikes. And this is in order to keep the lights on for the critical consumers, such as these AI-driven data centers, public services, the hospitals, vulnerable consumers, those who are on life support systems. And then there is the introduction of battery energy storage systems that are powered by solar energy. And these can be a good source of power during the peak periods, because energy can then be drawn from them to power the buildings and the houses, and can be sold back to the power grid when it is not utilized. So just to give some examples, in Australia, energy retailers, they have used the Gentrack technology to enable them to bundle their solar panels and battery energy storages as part of their energy plans. So think about it like the telcos and how they bundle the mobile phones with the telco plans. It's the same thing, same use case. So another example in Australia is how energy retailers have used Gentrack to create what we call virtual power plants. So virtual power plants are basically a network or aggregation of smaller scale distributed energy resources, such as home solar panels, battery storage, or even electric vehicles. You know that a fully charged electric vehicle can actually power a home for 24 hours. So by the use of technology such as Gentrack, they can help all these distributed energy resources operate as one single flexible power plant. One example is Amber Energy in Australia. They are one of these providers and operators of a virtual power plant through what they call their Smart Shift program. And one last example is in Singapore. One of our customers, Senoko Energy, they offer peer-to-peer energy trading services called SolarShare. It allows their consumers, their customers, to buy and sell electricity with other businesses who also have solar assets. So lots of examples, lots of use cases.